Music, music. Before we start the stories, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a nice comment that shows who you are. Now, I'm going to tell you the scariest story I know, my own. It started with a dad who had a severe mental illness and was also very violent. One summer when I was 16 and my little brother was 8, our dad fired a hunting rifle at us from very close range downstairs in our house. Luckily, he missed my heart by just a couple of inches, and thank God I'm still alive today. When I came home that evening, I found my stepmom wiping blood off the tile floor like nothing had happened. This was the most terrifying and incomprehensible experience I've ever been through. Some might think that the attempted murder was enough to cancel out a father's rights over his kids, but unfortunately, the police said it was just an accident and didn't take any action. My brother and I couldn't tell the truth because we were scared of our dad. When we were 13 and 14, we decided to pack our things and leave the state we lived in. We never spoke to our dad again, and even now, my brother still has small scars on his chest from that time. I worked briefly as a firefighter. One day, we got a call about a car accident. Only half an hour had passed since my shift started. The man involved in the accident was driving home after a long night of heavy drinking. His car got hit on the right side when he ran a red light. His wife died instantly, but he was almost unharmed. When we arrived at the scene, he was out of the car, but his wife was still sitting in the passenger seat. The lower part of her body was still in place, but her upper body was hanging towards the driver's seat, like she was trying to reach the driver's door to open it, though she was already unconscious. She wasn't responding. There was no visible blood on the driver's side, but the passenger door was badly damaged from the crash. The husband was still drunk and didn't realize how serious it was. He kept asking us to hurry and get his wife out of the car so they could go back home. He was laughing and stumbling around with the police officers. When the paramedics checked, they found she had no pulse. We tried to get her out from the driver's side. We discovered that the lower left part of her body, from the pelvis to the thigh, was completely crushed, and a piece of the door had pierced her left abdomen. When we told him that his wife she died, probably losing a lot of blood just minutes after the accident. Right away, we saw the expression on his face change. He started off denying what happened, then stopped joking. Then it hit him what was really going on. Finally, he ended up in a state of panic and despair. Suddenly, he snapped back to full awareness and ran over to the driver's side, trying to pull his wife away forcefully. That sudden move tore her wound open, so we had to drag him away from her. Then he went over to the passenger side and tried to open the mangled door with his hands. After that, we left the scene and left the rest to the police to handle. I saw the news about it that day. One of my closest childhood friends had an uncle involved. She was one of the kindest and most generous women you could ever meet in your life. Truly a shining example of humanity and love. She started dating a man who fell for her because of her kindness and generosity. But after about a month of being together, he began accusing her of being too nice to others. Then, in a brutal fit of rage, he beat her unconscious and committed a horrific crime. He tore her heart out while she was still alive. He believed that her kindness toward others during their serious relationship was the worst kind of disrespect to him, and that he deserved to be the only one to receive her love and care. Just because she treated people with kindness. She felt like her boyfriend was cheating on her with everyone, and he killed her because he couldn't accept the person she wanted to be. When their relationship started, just thinking that there were people like that guy in the world terrified me. I was living next to a killer. Faye Sweetley was 6 years old when she was kidnapped from her front yard. The news about it spread everywhere. News crews, police, even the FBI were all over the apartment complex where my fiancé and I live. We met with FBI agents 3 times. They searched our entire apartment and everything in it. I remember that day like it was yesterday. I was on a FaceTime video call with my fiance while the police were searching the trash bins right outside my apartment. Suddenly, they pulled out a small shoe and a knife covered in blood. Then they found her body just about 300 feet from my place. The strangest part was the killer watching the whole thing unfold as they found the murder weapon. The idiot had put the knife in a trash bag along with some of his mail. After that, he went out to his back balcony and slit his own throat. It was absolutely crazy. I'd talked to this guy a few times and never suspected he was mentally unstable. This all happened a year ago. When I was about 10, I used to regularly join the kids' choir club. One day, my dad came to pick me up and take me home. I felt kind of surprised because it was usually my mom who did that, but I didn't think much of it. About halfway there, my dad started mumbling something about how sorry he was and said I wouldn't see him again. I was really scared and confused, and I kept asking what he meant, but he didn't answer. When we got home, he didn't get out of the car. Instead, he urged me to get out. Finally, he told me I wouldn't see him again because he was going to die soon because of something he did. The police said they'd answer all my questions after pretty much forcing me out of the car. I ran home, but no one was there. I found the door open and saw a pool of blood on the floor. The police were nearby and explained what happened. My dad was struggling with extreme jealousy. They found an old box of condoms in the safe, and he jumped to the crazy conclusion that my mom had cheated on him. He didn't care that we'd just moved into this apartment or that those things might have been left behind by previous tenants. He was controlling every move my mom made and never let her go out alone. The police took me to the hospital where my mom was, and luckily she was still alive and getting treatment. My dad had violently hit her with a full wine bottle and cracked her skull. The only reason she survived was because my little brother, who was 7 at the time, stepped in. If he hadn't, my dad would have killed her in a jealous rage. When he told me I'd never see him again, he meant he was planning to kill himself right after I was sent back, but he failed. The police caught him and admitted him to a psychiatric hospital. To this day, that's the scariest experience I've ever been through. But I always think about my brother. Imagine witnessing your mom being beaten nearly to death by your dad. We all went through a huge emotional shock because of that. But somehow we turned out to be good people. I never told him how grateful I was to have him there at that time, but I really think I should. Despite everything my mom went through, she's the strongest and kindest woman I know. It takes incredible strength to get out of such an abusive marriage and keep living positively, plus raising her kids on her own. When I was 7, I used to collect stones in my uncle's front yard. And suddenly, this old beat-up truck stopped right in front of me. The man got out of the house and started fiddling with something under the hood. Then he closed it, turned to me, and said, "Kid, do you know how to start a car using the clutch?" Since I grew up on a farm, I already knew how to do it. So I said yes. He told me, "Help me quickly." So I started walking toward his truck. At the last moment, I heard my mom calling me from the porch. I turned to see what she wanted, and while my back was turned, I heard the truck door slam shut. The engine roared to life, and the man drove off. I didn't really think about that moment much over all those years, until about 30 years later when I, lying in bed, about to fall asleep, suddenly a memory hit me like a slap. That man was trying to kidnap me. Oh my God. What could have happened? What kind of bullets did I survive? Have you ever had an old memory suddenly come back and felt real fear? Not just normal fear, but deep fear that shakes you to your core? I was trembling for almost half an hour thinking about it, and even now, just thinking about it still scares me. My mom's friend left her abusive husband. My mom met her while working at a women's shelter. They were really close, and my mom worked really hard to find a safe place for her. They did everything they could. My mom helped her friend file for divorce properly, but one morning my mom couldn't get in touch with her, even though they had planned to have lunch together. Then my mom opened the newspaper and saw the news. She called work to say she was sick, which she had never done before. After that, my mom sat me down, crying, and told me what happened. Her friend was at home with her son when her ex broke in, killed her, and left the child there in his mother's blood. Then he killed himself outside my mom's store. The last we heard, the boy, who was about 2 years old, went to live with his uncle. I can't even imagine how terrifying that must have been. What this kid felt, crying alone next to his mom's body in her blood for almost 2 days until someone found him one night. My uncle was at a cafe and started talking to a stranger, a guy my uncle described as really nice. They met a few more times at the same cafe, drinking and chatting about random stuff, but after a while, my uncle stopped seeing this guy there. I don't know how much time passed, but then my uncle got a notice saying he had to serve on a jury. When he went, he found out the case was about a serial killer, and it turned out the guy he'd been talking to was the one on trial. A friend of mine at the cafe, Derek Toddley, got my uncle kicked off the jury right away for obvious reasons. I work the night shift at a gas station, and I've been doing this for a long time at different stations in various areas with different levels of crime. Of course, I have regular customers. I'm a small-built woman, and my partner, who works with me on alternating weeks, and I always cooperate closely. That's why these regular customers often worry about us and make sure to keep an eye out for anything strange or suspicious whenever they can. There was a guy who worked at the subway about an hour from here, and he used to stop by every morning to buy something. The cigarette guy never smiled and didn't seem friendly at all. Like always, I kept thinking of ways to make him smile one day. It took a few months, but I finally succeeded when I put his cigarettes ready on the table and wiped it down before he came in. He smiled, then asked me, "Don't you ever feel scared working the night shift? You're just a young girl. This isn't safe." I told him, "Yeah, sometimes I do feel scared, but we can always lock the doors and hide if we have to. Plus, the local police station is like the state patrol if you were American, pretty close by, and they often come around to wash their cars. I had a good relationship with them." This officer rubbed his head, then started telling me a story about the early days when he first arrived in our country from Eastern Europe with his wife and son in the late 80s and early 90s. He said he used to work night shifts at a gas station, and once he dozed off while working. When he woke up, the phone had been ringing for hours, and his manager was shaking him hard, asking if he was okay. The man said he was fine and asked what the problem was. He apologized for falling asleep, but his manager shouted, "It's okay that you slept, just look outside." All the engine oil was gone, and outside was chaos. Thieves had come and stolen all the oil but didn't bother him since he was asleep the whole time. Then they moved on to another gas station. The next day, the thieves came back to continue stealing at that station. The seller was awake and tried to fight them off, but they stabbed him to death and left him bleeding until he passed away. When he finished his story, he told me, "If you ever feel sleepy, just close the door and go to sleep. That might save your life." I don't work at that station anymore, but I always think about that man and wonder how his grandchildren are doing.